In the early 20th century, Irish farmers were among the leading farmers in Lexington. Then, disaster. Cut to the 1940s, and business was rapidly changing. Agribusiness corporations dominated the farming industry, and family farms were pushed to the back burner. Large corporations capitalized on economies of scale, while affordably shipping from a distance to local markets, and farm labor became scarce, as government regulations fell hardest on the small farmers and destroyed their profit margins. Disaster struck again as land values began to skyrocket, causing local farmers to sell their land to developers in order to provide for their families. In the 19th century, 28 farms existed in Lexington. Today, there are only 3 left. While it is evident that farming and residential expansion are destined to be at odds, Wilson Farm has successfully defied the stereotype and prospered for the past 129 years. Through the expansion of the farming industry into a worldwide, multifaceted company, as well as the adoption of new technologies, Wilson Farms has successfully withstood the test of time and proven itself to be a beacon of hope for aspiring local farmers.
Located in present-day Lexington at 10 Pleasant Street, Wilson Farm was founded in 1884 by 3 Irish immigrants, brothers James A. Wilson and W. M. Wilson, as well as their brother-in-law George Reynolds. All 3 men were originally from Enniskillen, Ireland, and came to the United States with the simple goal of making a livelihood in the form of a market garden. Led by James A. Wilson, the salesman of the group, the brothers bought 16 acres of land and rented the surrounding fields, with the other 2 partners working the farm.
Wilson Farm first began to show promise as a large-scale farm in the late 1800s. Farmers from Lexington and neighboring towns often took produce to Boston to sell at Quincy Market. Small local farmers began to bring produce to James Wilson, who would then combine the partial loads in order to fill the market wagons. James Wilson's sons joined the family business as the other 2 partners lost interest. W. M. Wilson and his family went into a successful textile dyeing business, while George Reynolds sold his interest to James to pursue other ventures. This left James and his family as the sole owners and operators of the business. In the 1920s, James left the farm to his 2 sons, Walter and Stanley, who then brought their own sons, Donald and Alan, into the business 30 years later.
Donald and Alan Wilson inherited the family farm as the farming industry began its inevitable decline. Rather than submit to defeat, the Wilson brothers looked for a way to avoid falling into the typical pitfalls that local farms often fell into, and decided to expand their industries. In 1952, they officially took over the family business and opened a retail farm stand. In 1965, to meet the demands of business, the farm stand was replaced by a larger, weatherproof building, and 10 years later, the building was installed with heat and electric cash registers. While the brothers had transformed the small farm stand into a functioning company, Scott Wilson, the next family member in line, realized that in order to succeed, Wilson Farm had to offer more. So 2 decades later, he set out creating a barn to accompany the farm. To do this, he hired Tommy Silva from Silva Brothers Construction to help him hire expert timber framers. He eventually decided on architects Bechtel, Frank, and Erickson. The 8,500 square foot barn was unveiled in 1996 and built completely of recycled lumber with only 4 metal joints pegging everything together. 4 years later, the barn was joined by the state-of-the-art 37,000-foot greenhouse.
As one of the 3 farms in Lexington to have survived the implementation of big business companies, Wilson Farm has obviously figured out 2 key things that other local farmers haven't. It is necessary to expand, both in terms of land as well as industry. Over its lifetime, Wilson Farm has expanded from 16 to 33 acres in Lexington, as well as an additional 250 acres in Litchfield, New Hampshire. Not only has Wilson Farm's farmland expanded, but they now possess 2 retail farm stands, an open-air nursery and garden center, a state-of-the-art greenhouse, a wholesale business, and an imports company. The wholesale business consists of 2 companies, Wilson Farm in Lexington and Wilson Farm Imports. Wilson Farm is a major importer of produce from Holland, Belgium, Israel, Spain, Canada, and Mexico, allowing customers to purchase high-quality produce year-round from around the world. The fostering of these worldwide relationships with farms and buyers have allowed Wilson Farm to evolve from a simple local farm into a worldwide company.
From a 16-acre plot in 1884 to a 500-acre international company, Wilson Farmers truly stood the test of time.
Hello, hello, hello.
Start of the end of the world, but it's feeling just like every other morning before. Now I wonder what my life is gonna mean if it's gone. The cars are moving like a half a mile an hour, and I started staring at the passengers and waving goodbye. Can you tell me what was ever really special about me all this time? But I've